Hello YouTube. This video will serve two major purposes. It'll discuss the primary differences between Prime and Umbra and why Umbra is really, I would argue, a better version at this point, and how Prime is really obsolete or at least a relic of the past, and not to really worry about them, but then also to discuss I'd say the two major ways that you can survive as Excalibur, and two fundamentally different builds that you can run, and why you would want to choose one way over the other. You just sort of rapid fire this off. Those two major ways, and let's say two major builds, and this is a running theme across my previous videos, but the two major builds that I think would be the only ones that you'd ever really care to run on Excalibur. Now you're running melee only. Let's just say it doesn't mean you can't equip primaries and secondaries, but Excalibur is a melee warframe. So if you're playing Excalibur, I'm kind of assuming that you want to play melee. And whether that's using equipped melee or Exalted Blade is which build you'll select. So the one major build that you can run is, let's say you want to just not pull out Exalted Blade, you just want to use his abilities as effectively as possible, and using equipped melee or even your primaries and secondaries. The main way to do that is by using something like this. So there's a very set of important things to understand about Excalibur and how you survive with him. The main way is slash dash, and this is a almost brand new thing that has been changed because in 1999, really deeply hidden in the patch notes was a bug fix, which was slash dash not having shield immunity, which has always been a problem. It's always been a point of contention on like the forums and people reporting survivability issues with Excalibur. Well, they fixed that in 1999. Only took them like 11 years to do it, but they finally did. So slash dash has shield immunity now, and also health immunity, just to clarify that. The reason that's very important is what used to happen with slash dash without shield immunity is you would be slash dashing, your shields would drain while you're slash dashing, and then you'd come out of it with no shields and health vulnerability. Now you don't have that. And the way that you can maximize that feature is by having some sort of like brief respite or augur mod. And I think the best way to do it is brief respite because it's just going to be more effective. You get a lot more energy from it. There's really no aura that is as powerful as this unless you run some of the more niche stuff like you might have seen with my previous Radial Javelin build. What this gets away from specifically with Radial Javelin is it's not reliant on like demonstrating the crit chance and crit damage. That previous build, that was largely a demonstration of crit chance and crit damage. Where that'll become relevant is when, let's just say, they happen to make Exalted Blade be scaling Radial Javelin. So Radial Javelin starts scaling like an Exalted ability. That would be great. And then it can crit on its own and it can scale its own damage up to the moon. You don't have to do weird stuff. Now, you might notice this runs primary direction. This is a primary way of doing it. So obviously there's where you can use maximum shields. You can use, let's say, umbral mods, which I'll show in another build variation, or something like adaptation. Without going and showing you my base Excalibur build that uses adaptation, you could do something like this. And then you're not, what the advantage of here is that you're not reliant on your companion choice, because I would make the generalization on Excalibur if you don't have the mod slots to run triple umbral because you're, in this case, maximizing, let's say, your strength, you want to try to run shields. And in this specific build, this has two major advantages on running shields. I'll show the Exalted Blade just real quick before I forget. This is the same as previous builds. You're just trying to get as much damage as possible, including running 90% mods instead of 60%, just to get that little bit of extra. You don't need the status chance for it. The status chance is not important on this. You're using afflictions to generate more status than any build could possibly get, depending on what they're afflicted by. But the important thing to note is your Sentinel build in this scenario. So this is a well understood and well reported advantage when it comes to the way Guardian works. So if you're able to get Manifold Bond to reduce the cooldown of Guardian, you can effectively always have a reliable source of shield replenishment. And with Slash Dash having immunity now, this is a very effective way to survive. And you're not having to transfer in and out of Operator all the time in order to like maintain your abilities and using like Vazarin and all that. So the main advantage over, let's say, my previous build that I was showing is I'm not required to use Vazarin to survive, because instead of relying on like potential crit chance and crit damage modifiers with my Kavat, I'm able to use what is the other very important thing to note is a absolutely genocidal maniac of a Verglass Prime build when you have it set up to bias heat over viral. So you mod heat viral, and then I throw in a third one just because then it can inherently proc Manifold Bonds. It has like 3, but more than likely you're putting slash on everything. You're putting puncture on everything with this build. So you could kind of get rid of this if you really wanted to. This doesn't use Tenacious Bond, so you don't need the ridiculousness of a Riven like this to try to get the 50% crit chance, because we don't really care about crit chance or crit damage in this build, because the clouds really don't crit. They're not supposed to crit, but they sometimes do. They don't need to in order to do a lot of damage. And then this thing isn't like, you don't get Tenacious Bond from here, and then it's not applicable to your Radial Javelin because of the fact that you can't give it any crit chance. There's no source of crit chance, so you're just ignoring crit chance and crit damage entirely on Radial Javelin and relying on the fact that your Sentinel is priming everything with heat to reduce its armor, but then also stacks of viral, and those will buff it and make it a very satisfying ability. Before I forget, we'll discuss real quick this. So I'm actually using 2 energy effectiveness orbs, or energy shards, for effectiveness on energy orbs. And that's very important, because if you don't run 2, if you run 1, you'll run into this problem where you're like always drained in energy. But if you had 2, you go from no energy to surplus of energy. And the best theory I can come up with just has to do with the balance of consumption versus generation, because you're using duplex bond in order to help drop these, and these drop like candy. But if you don't have enough energy to keep them up, then you're not going to have them drop enough orbs in order to then keep them up, to then keep your energy up, to keep spawning them. So there's a balance within this that as long as you use 2 Tau of these effectiveness on energy orbs on Umbra, then you should be fine. And this one, I've discussed this multiple times. You use this for his Spectre. His Spectre has starting energy. That solves the problem with Excalibur. I would say just have one of these. If you wanted to just even use a 30%, like the non-Tau version, if you were limited on these, just use a non-Tau. And it's going to like fundamentally change his the way Exalted Blade works with him. Noting this is an Exalted Blade build. This one specifically is more like slash dash radial javelin and dual liquor clouds, or whatever melee weapons or whatever you want to have, since Roar buffs all of your weapons. And then casting speed. I have 2 on here. Whether 2 is needed on him overall, I leave that up to you. I think with Roar is very slow, but if you wanted to free up one of these, then you could do that. The thing I don't have in here that I have on Prime is, instead of having a starting energy, I have this, because this is very effective either direction. Whether you're getting tons of health orbs and you wouldn't be able to give yourself a little bit of extra energy, or all those energy orbs and you need a little bit of health. So it's a way that you can, this is how this build heals. This is the same exact build, but we won't get into that. But it's the same build. The only difference is 1 Archon Shard. So we'll go back to this. And going back into this build, Prime Sure-Footed, you can run this on Umbra. And discussing his sentience, I don't think Warrior's Rest is necessary. There's only a few builds. This was actually one of those builds where I was like, okay, well, maybe you want to run Warrior's Rest. But notice our duration. So you're recasting Roar and Radial Javelin a lot. So if Roar gets decasted while you're in your operator mode, you're coming out of it and recasting it anyways. Like, I'm recasting it constantly because you're getting amp from your conditional effects during the mission, but then also you're getting the knockdown, you're getting the damage reduction from those 5 puncture status effects. It's just it really is a moot point at this point. Especially in a build like this, where you're not reliant on long, like 250 duration stuff and then a low energy economy. This uses the energy economy and the combination of these abilities to survive, and you're casting them constantly to the point that I don't even care that you get less than 12-second duration on Radial Javelin's Furious Javelin augment, because it doesn't matter. You're recasting this constantly because you're using it for damage as well. So this is probably the least impacted build that I've ever seen, that I've ever played with, on how not running Warrior's Rest and being able to run Prime Sure-Footed, and in this case also Narman. So you have all of the quality of life features that I like and I have on Prime. But there's some things. There's a plus and a minus to this. So obviously, when you transfer into Operator, you lose Roar. That I did verify this. That includes for your teammates. And it's say if you wanted to run Prime and then you wanted to run around as Operator for some reason and just turret with your Warframe, then I guess you could run Warrior's Rest if you wanted to in that scenario. I still don't think that's useful. Just to get that roar continuously, because you're really not going into Operator that much. In missions that you go into Operator a lot, you're probably coming out and recasting this anyways. So, because you want to maintain that energy. You want to keep draining your energy, so you keep having your little genocidal duplex specters or clones, whatever you want to call them, just going out there and killing stuff and dropping energy orbs. So it's like, it really is a moot point on the decast in this setup, even though it's Roar, and you would think like, oh, I don't want Roar decasting all the time. So yeah, if you run these builds, just run exactly how I run them, because I've like really tested every single little mod configuration here. Same with this. I run sacrificial mods for a reason, because condition overload doesn't apply to slash dash. This is slash dash primary focus build. If you want to run Exalted Blade, that's when I would recommend running the other build that I'll show. And this one runs, the Radial Javelin runs, just at least recap this, it runs shields because you don't have the mod slots to run triple umbral. Because triple umbral overall is probably better. It's a little bit more flexible, because that's going to run into problems if you happen to go through a toxin cloud. And that happens not infrequently, but frequently enough to be obnoxious. So that's where I still think triple umbral, a setup like this, is overall more versatile defensive-wise on Excalibur. But as you can see, this build is fundamentally different. And some of the variability here is like on that Radial Javelin build, you can run Nourish, you can run Roar. Roar is just overall the best, and you get that augment, but you can flip between those two. I think the combination of these two builds, that you don't have to change anything, you don't have to polarize, you don't have to change any of your Archon Shards. This one is slightly disadvantaged on Archon Shards because the Roar one does require those exact configurations to actually work properly, including the Tau variations of them. This one's a lot more flexible, and really you would want to change one or two to really maximize it, but I would consider this build, it doesn't even need a lot of strength for it to go to the moon. The other variability here is you can also just run Wrathful Advance as a subsume here. You could run Roar if you wanted to as well, or Nourish. I just think between Word Scythe and the way it interacts with his Sentience mode when you're running Prime Sure-Footed, it just works really well. It stacks multiple viral, so it helps increase that single target damage when you're running Exalted Blade. And it also helps buff your Radial Javelin damage. Not enough to not nowhere near in comparison to the other build, but it's a little bit of a help. Or you can run Wrathful Advance. With Wrathful Advance, if you're going to run this build at level cap, run Wrathful Advance. Yeah, the difference there is pretty huge. I'd say as a general purpose build, though, this is a lot of fun as well. And to show Exalted Blade, and I'm running Narman on here as well. To show Exalted Blade, it's very similar. I've been experimenting with these. When you don't run, let's say you're running this sort of build where you're running Word Scythe instead of like Wrathful Advance, getting the elemental damage higher I think is worth it. Where you're losing Weeping Wounds in this scenario, but you already get enough status chance. You're at least over 100%, which is kind of all you really need to make the build powerful. This gets up to probably like 140% if I did quick mental math with all the conditional strength bonus, like with the 60% increase. It's approximately what you'll get, let's just say. But it's similar here. These are important. This is actually very important so that you can actually get 100% crit chance. Because notice how our crit damage, we don't have any modded crit damage, and we don't have any Violet Shards, because that extra bit of crit chance from your Kavat build is actually making use here. So you get at least guaranteed crits set up with Blood Rush and the sacrificial set. And then you're getting that bit of extra crit damage from Tenacious Bond, because the advantage of this build versus that other one is you're able to use Resourceful Retriever since you have a companion. And then Tenacious Bond fits into the build a lot easier, but it's more applicable to this one than the other one. This one I've been experimenting with, and it's kind of fun. So you're making your companion immune, or like immortal, as long as you keep attacking things. It's going to just be able to stay overguarded or shield. And then if it does reach a point where it takes lethal damage, it's more likely at a 6% chance to not die than it is to die. That's at 60% versus a 40% chance that it doesn't. And then you're able to maximize charms. So charm's going to give you that 200% chance crit damage or crit chance, and that's noticeable when it procs here. It gives you shields, it gives you energy regeneration. It's just a really good overall mod that I prefer Smeeta when I run these builds. Tandem Bond, this is going to make your not as genocidal as something like a Verglass Prime build, but it's noticeable. So I would recommend running that. And same with Duplex. This is how you're maintaining energy economy with getting those drops. And then this will help. This isn't perfect, but it's noticeable enough to where you can kind of get rid of other sources of healing. If you wanted to run Magus Elevate still as a backup, then go for it. But I haven't found this necessary because you're using shields and slash dash to get those immunity frames, if you want to call them that. And then your companion, if you did drop below max health, then your companion in that meanwhile is going to get overguarded from slash dash, because slash dash counts as a melee hit. And then it's going to be every attack that it's going to do is going to heal you up. So it's a nice synergy here. And this is really nothing special. Same as usual. So that's the influence setup. So between these two builds, this is where Prime sort of falls short. And it has to do with your... we'll go into this and show this. So this is what I'm running on here. So two casting, 2 energy orb effectiveness, and then this guy, which is really my primary source of healing when I'm running the shield build. Since you're getting energy orbs, and if you don't have health orbs around, you're getting almost infinite energy orbs, then you'll use the energy orb to give you health. But then also it allows you to get energy from health orbs. It's a feature unlock. And this is the major difference between the two builds other than one single extra umbral mod. So notice the capacity here. So I can't run triple umbral in this build just simply based on capacity. It just won't fit. So you can run 2, but running 2 is kind of pointless with umbral mods. You're either running all 3 or you're running just intensify, in my opinion. Like I don't see the use in only using 2 of them. And because you're either using 1 or all 3 in a build where you're freeing up a mod slot, or because this would be effectively one of your umbral slot, you're able to instead of running triple umbral, you're able to run umbral and then 1 defensive mod that isn't one of the fiber or vitality. So it gives you an extra mod slot to run like transient fortitude or blind rage or a second augment or a third augment, whatever it is that floats your boat. So that's kind of the main difference there. And if you are running shields, you want to run a Sentinel that gives you Guardian and can maintain Guardian. Let's go to Prime and Umbral and show you this exact build. And you'll notice one difference, which is I don't have 8 remaining capacity, and I've got a red marked for my augment. So you have to put your augment here. And this is pretty much every Excalibur build runs at least 1 augment, whether that's Fierce Javelin or your Subsume or Chromatic Blade. So I wouldn't worry about like, okay, well, if I'm not running triple umbral and I'm running, let's say, Prime Redirection instead, or Rolling Guard or Adaptation, then you're going to have a red polarity. Well, that's fine, because guess what? We're on Umbra and you get that starting energy. So then you don't even really worry about like, oh, I'm unable to cast my first ability to like get my energy ramp going with Impetus, because you have starting energy. And because of the fact that that's, I would say, highly recommended for his Spectre, even in a build like this, you still kind of want it. It's like a 2 birds, 1 stone, where I don't run it on Prime because it doesn't really seem worth it in comparison. But in this, you're fixing Spectre issue or minimizing Spectre issue, and then also providing starting energy that will help you ramp in order to get the stacks of this necessary, and also, very important to note, getting enough duplex bonds out from energy casts to then have them dropping energy orbs and sort of catalyze this positive loop of you spending energy and then having that energy spent dropping orbs. So that's where it's very important. And showing that, and I've shown this already in the other section, you only need 2 Umbra Forma on Excalibur Umbra in order to really run every build because of that. And I'd say that's the main advantage here, because you can get that feature from his Spectre when you want it to, and then if you don't want it because it somehow breaks something that you're doing on another build, then just swap it in there and then you're good to go. The obvious disadvantage of that is to run these 2 different builds. So let's say these 2, you're running like 1, 2, and like 3 Umbral Forma in order to fit this. Like you have to have everything polarized in this, and then 3 of those are Omniforma. So if you invest a lot into it, then go for it. You just need 3 Omniforma in order to do it, it seems, or you could just Omniforma everything because you can. Don't recommend it. It's not necessary. So I think that's a good overview of and demonstration of this build to show why, like how there's an advantage here with Umbra that you can run these 2 builds that I physically can't run on Prime right now without polarizing this slot with another Umbra Forma, which I probably will do at some point. But then I'm really screwed over on the starting energy to where like I'm running short enough to where I might not be able to cast like Roar before I just have to rely on Slash Dash to maybe get an energy orb and then kickstart this thing. Now I could just run, instead of this guy, I could just run a starting energy Archon Shard, but it just doesn't feel as right in comparison to Umbra. Noting that I don't even have an influence set up on this because I just can't. Like maybe I'll mess around with running shields and all that, but it just doesn't seem necessary. Like if I'm running influence, I really feel like you just run triple umbral and you get that flexibility, and then you just run a Kavat instead. So going back, overview recap. If you're running enough augments strength in order to really only be able to run a shield build, then run a Sentinel. And if you're running triple umbral, you can run a Kavat. And that Kavat then gives you the feature of like easy tenacious bond, and then also resourceful retriever, which is going to be the most important out of all of them. And then I really don't see a disadvantage to just running Umbra. Like I've been playing Umbra recently. I guess I can even show. I've been playing a lot of Umbra. Still not as much as Prime historically, but I've been playing a lot of Umbra. Enough to, I would say, speak confidently about his usefulness and the lack of major difference between him and Prime, to where I'm comfortable having 2 entirely different mod configurations on between the 2, and be primarily playing him. So I think without getting into too much more detail, I just show the way this umbral build or this shield build works, because I think it'll speak for itself. I think the primary things to look at is the fact that I'm not having to go into operator at all this entire mission. Like I'm not even going to, because of dual hickers, I'm not even going to bother getting the increased combo duration or combo generation. You just don't need it. I just have to stop myself there. I was about to do it. I would just Roar, Radial Javelin, and then Sentinel. Like notice how there's already 2 Spectres out because your energy costs are very high. And then we were able to have enough energy to kickstart in almost infinite energy. We're already at 8 stacks of impetus. This is far better at keeping impetus up because the status chance on Verglass is so much. Status chance and fire rate is so much higher. I do have companion. Or like other things damage numbers on, so you will see damage numbers from my companion because sometimes it hits energy cap, depending on how good Contagious Bond is doing. To recap though, if I transfer in and out of operator, you do lose Roar, but at the same time, there's an argument that having the ability, I'll show this real quick, very easy for this to recover, and you have plenty of energy to be able to survive. Like here I'm just using slash dash, and then Banion's back up, and it's going to be able to give me my shields back once they fully drain. So I'm like pretty much shielded this entire time. And even here we're regenerating. Duplex doing things across the map as usual. Right there, the combination of Radial Javelin and the Sentinel doing work. See if we can watch it hit Integer Cat. This is still a dual Ichor Cloud build. Just, if I didn't mention that, this is still fully capable at creating self-sustaining conditions for dual Ichor's Clouds. Just casually at 11 stacks, not even trying to stack them, just playing the build. The energy economy on it is so good that I'm not even worried about energy, and this build is almost entirely reliant on energy in order to, or at least combat in order to sustain itself. Oh, we almost got self-sustaining clouds over there, but then my Incarnate expired. Which your clouds, it no longer spawns clouds when your Incarnate expires, and sometimes that's the limiting factor on how long you can self-sustain. This obviously won't, with only a 12-second duration or so, this won't just let you AFK, sort of like I showed in some of my previous videos. You'd have to send the duration to 250% to really maximize on that, since you might not be able to see enemies that are getting killed across the map by your self-sustaining cloud. So this is a little bit more balanced. It's allowing you to actually use Radial Javelin effectively as well. It's like hitting in the millions. I don't know if we've seen an Integer Cap yet. But it happens quite regularly. It has to do with Contagious. You know, Contagious Bond doing its thing. Even at the capped stacks, it can still do that. For those of us that remember the before times, before they capped it, and hopefully your PC was good enough. Otherwise, the game would crash. So I'm not even really going ham here. We're getting plenty of kills per minute. Density in this doesn't seem to be as good as usual.
When you are ready, go to extraction.
And there's our Acolyte, so I'm gonna get this going. We'll see if we can.
Gotcha.
Oh. I don't know where he spawned. But he died. Oh. There, I transferred into Operator, so notice here, and this is one thing I haven't tested. Notice how his health bar is immune, so he died pretty much immediately after I spawned him. And I don't think he can take damage here, and this might be a feature of his sentience, in that you don't run into the problem where you're at level cap and then your Warframe takes lethal damage, because I don't remember their health bar being grayed out in this area. We're the test. Next time I'm going to level cap is with this build specifically. Let's see. I'm already at 3 stacks. We just need one enemy that's primed up. It does a lot better job at building stacks. The only disadvantage is I think with the heat, it prevents them from getting knocked down if they're affected by heat, like in the right timing. So yeah, I think that's a plenty enough demonstration. I never had to go operator. I went it once there by accident, and yeah, you lose. You do lose roar for your teammates as well, but you're recasting it pretty much constantly anyways, and I really don't see the disadvantage there. I see the advantages of sentience outweighing the advantages of not sentience, which is where my sort of declaration comes in that I would consider Prime obsolescent at this point. It's has some slight advantages, but I think that's outweighed by the advantages of the bugs that have been fixed with Umbra. And conveniently, because we're not running a health build, the one where his health gets dropped doesn't really matter in this, which is nice. So yeah, if there's anything that you think I left out, or if there's any questions about that, well, I'll do a quick recap where you can run in this sort of build configuration with these polarities, just running 2 Umbral Forma. You can, on Umbra, because of some of the other things you're doing with Archon Shards, you can run 2 completely different builds, where you have a full shield build that's using the long, in this case, I don't even think I showed it, the long 2.4 second shield gate that you get, that's like pretty much always being refreshed by your Sentinel, and you're using that and just shields in order to stay alive, in combination with Slash Dash and the fact that that provides you full immunity. Not the Overguard, though. Your Overguard still takes damage. Unless they fixed that recently. But if you don't want to run that, you can run triple Umbra. Just perfectly fine, because you're not worried about your starting energy from remaining capacity, with the fact that you're really highly recommended to run at least one of these. And that's where I think Umbra takes over, and where I'm planning to run him for quite a bit. I'm even running incognito mode so that people don't bug me about Prime. And hopefully I can just show them this video if they do bug me and talk about Prime and how they want Prime and how they care about that they don't have Prime, when Umbra is perfectly effective. So without more ranting about that and how obnoxious that can get, thanks for watching.